So of course there's times when we notice our orchids don't look great. And that's the time we gotta take some action. Hey plant peeps, I'm Travis from Orchids. Thanks for checking in. So we all have these plants, that occasionally they seem to start out great when we buy them, and then slowly but surely they just fade away and wither into nothing, and then we're all sad. And of course this happens to us and it happens to everybody, and that's okay, but we try to save the plants that we can. I probably should give up on them sooner than I do for some, because maybe I'm pretty heartless when it comes to throwing away weak or sick plants. Anyway, here's a few that we really have noticed are not doing well, and something needs to be addressed. So we'll start with the mini mark. Yeah, we bought this plant like 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago now, and it bloomed the first year for us. It was a really nice plant. Had leaves bigger than this one that you can see, the biggest leaf. The leaves that were on the plant when we got it were bigger than that, or about the same size, maybe a little bit bigger. And it bloomed when we got it from the nursery. And then slowly but surely, year after year, just kind of faded away into what you see now, which we do grow in water culture as like a stopgap, kind of to save some plants. Anyways, the mini mark every year, it would put on a little spike, which, you can see there is a little, hopefully it's going to focus on that, a little spike there growing, the start of a new inflorescence. And the brown stalk was the withered remains of little inflorescence it started 2 years ago. But it's done that for the last like 2 or 3 summers. It's put on the start of a spike, and then it just withers away and browns up and never flowers. And slowly but surely, one of the main signs that something may be wrong with your orchid, especially Phalaenopsis, but many of the other orchids, is that the leaves will be smaller than previous year's leaves, So if the leaves get smaller, yeah, something's wrong. And so we repotted this a couple times over the last 3 years, and then the last time we noticed, like, all the roots were like broken and most of them are dead. They still look kind of good down in the jar, in the glass, it's kind of funny. But basically, I think, it's putting on some new roots as well, like right at the, the base where the little stalk is growing, the spike is growing. But I don't know. I think I'm ready to just pitch this one. And, I'm not beating myself up. The mini mark kind of has a reputation of being maybe a bit harder to bloom, and we just find it hard to grow. It's never done well after the first year. It's just a plant that's always declined. So yeah, it might be time to give up the ghost there on the mini mark. And then another Phalaenopsis that we're kind of really sad that it's starting to struggle. We'll show a bit of this closer up because, there's a few symptoms on this plant that indicate that there's something that needs to be addressed, most likely down in the roots. The first thing, again, is the leaf. The new leaf is smaller than previous leaves. This plant has always been a very good, solid, vigorous grower and put on very nice, long leaves. This summer, we think possibly it might have just got skipped over in a watering or something, or just needed more water this summer because it was pretty dehydrated when we got home from our little summer trip. And the rest of everything was fine, but this one particularly, you can see by just kind of how floppy, and there's like all these ridges running down the face of the leaf. And so that, is a sign of dehydration in the Phalaenopsis. And again, this new leaf is much smaller and it's kind of curled up. It's not the nice flat, broad leaf growth that you want to see from a phal. Certainly not what this plant has done for the last few years. And the roots, it did put on a new root growth kind of episode here a couple months ago. That probably was the time I should have repotted it. And one of the issues that, this was one of our first orchids, and we potted it up into a black pot, not a transparent clear pot, an opaque pot. So we can't see what's going on down with the roots, which that's not good, right? You want to know what's happening with the roots of your orchids, and so it makes sense that, that you grow it in clear pots. So I want to I'm not going to repot it on film tonight, but I definitely want to pull this out of the media because we intend to repot it, and I just want to show you guys what the roots look like because, typically when your orchid starts to look like this, 99 times out of 100, there's a problem with the roots, right? So the roots have either rotted out, they are not absorbing water, so you can water the heck out of it and it won't matter. It'll just make things worse, it clearly needs some addressing. So in this slide, you can much more clearly see probably just how floppy and wrinkled this leaf is, and that's clear dehydration. Not sure if we'll be able to save this plant. I mean, it does have a lot of nice new roots, and so I think it'll be okay. It just needs some love. It needs some attention here. And then next up is one, again, when you're looking at your plants, if they aren't growing when they should be, and they don't put on, or they start to have little pieces of new growing tissue that abort for whatever reason, like this guy does. This is the Leptotes bicolor, and we only have one of this kind of type of orchid, and it's always been in this pot for 2 years. This was the 2022 project orchid, I believe. About 3 months ago, you can see the top. There's two little points of growth down here at the base of this little leaf. And the top one aborted. That was the first one to start growing. And then the second, bottom one there, that one now started growing. I mean, that's great that it's growing something new, but these are the only new growing tips, growing points that we see on this whole plant, which concerns me. And it's never been a vigorous grower. I mean, it's always stayed alive. It has flowered for the last 2 years, here and here, and it has improved the flower count. So the first year it only bloomed 1 flower, and then last year it had two flowers. Actually 3 last year on 2 inflorescences, so we got a double bloom. So, in that way, you would think that this plant is probably doing pretty well, but it has slowed down its growth. Again, it's losing one of the older leaves here, and now it's only got 1 new growth point when it should have basically a new growth point from all of these. If this plant was growing to its maximum, it would be much bigger by now. It basically has only grown, it only grew 2 or 3 new leaves last year. So now is the time to take this out of here and address the roots and the media and what we're doing with this plant. We've been growing it in semi-hydroponics, but I keep it drier, as you can see by the massive salt buildup. Like basically it's not semi-hydroponics because I just drain this. It's just completely inorganic media down in here. I don't typically let water sit because we just noticed early on we had better luck with just letting the water that was in there. Now this is much smaller particles than our typical semi-hydro, so that is also different. We grew it in a pretty dense medium, which I don't think this is great. It needs to be addressed, right? If we don't address it, I think now soon, then we may face losing that entire plant, which I don't want. I like this. It's the only one we have, and I like the flowers. I want to try to keep it in the collection. And now some other issues. This is the Paphiopedilum gertrixianum. Let me pull that tag out. There you go. Paph gertrixianum. This plant was on its way to blooming. As you can see right here, this just 2 weeks ago now totally turned brown and faded. That was a bloom that was going to happen. So I did not find any bugs in here. I think it was in a spot where it was getting too cold, and we have a pretty bad mold problem with this plant. So this one actually lives in quarantine in the bathroom, and I think that's it. Yeah, we need to redo this. I don't like all this mold. I'm not sure if that contributed to the flower blasting, but either way, now I need to address this plant as well. Otherwise, I think it will continue to decline. The new growth, well, by the way, this is fine, right? This is not a problem on paphs. This is like normal. You can see where it bloomed 2 years ago from this little stalk. So that was the old bloom point, and that, honestly, I can just cut that out. I could probably pull it out. I don't want to do that. I'll do it when I unpot this. But this needs to come out of this media. It's been in here over 3 years now, and so it's ready to be changed out. And you can just see, well, it's hard to explain, but the older growths generally, you can see by the fan that just bloomed, right, they have larger leaves. And all of the newer growths, while, yeah, some of these are new from last year, a couple of these are 2 years old, and they're not as big as they should be. So this needs to be addressed as well. And so you're seeing a repeating theme, right? Like plants that just are not growing to their potential. You can tell they just aren't. Sometimes like new growth points will die. And I think it's all of these I attribute to just roots that are not performing, or maybe have completely died. I don't know. We'll see when we unpot them. I'm not going to unpot all of them on camera, sorry. But yeah. And now this guy has always been a concern, and I've shown it before on the channel here. It has that salt buildup from water and stuff, but it has always had these weird pits in the leaves. I don't know what that is. It's always had this, and so this plant also grows in quarantine in the other room in the bathroom. Again, this old leaf, that's fine. It has bloomed for us before, so that's just the old fan. All of these leaves will eventually then just turn brown and fall off, like from the fan that it grew on before. But yeah, you can see again here this like pitting. It turns like, it's, I don't know, it looks like silver. There's like this silver. I mean, a lot of that is salt buildup because this leaf now catches water when we water, like it'll splash a little bit and drip. So we've got salt buildup here on this one because, yeah, I'm not so like, this one I just don't, old leaf needs to come out. I don't really, not too stressed about this one if I don't like take care of it super well, and like, I don't care if I get water on the leaves because it's like, yeah, I think it already has a virus now. I mean, the new growth here looks really good. All of it is like nice and lush and green, and there's not much pitting. I mean, this is the new growth from this year, and it's got a little bit of that pitting here on the leaf, and certainly down here you can see there's like some damage, although I think that was from some mealybugs actually from that one. Don't see any on there. Make sure, but so clearly this plant is not happy and needs some attention, but we don't use like systemic fungicides or anything like that, and if we don't test for viruses, So yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where we'll keep an eye on it, we'll keep it separated. You know, I'm going to not go touch the other plants now because I'm not sure what that is that it has, but yeah, something's going on with that one. Yeah, so really quick, let me just wash my hands. We have more plants that really are struggling. This is the experiment plant, and so you can, we'll link to that here at the end screen. You can check out the story to this experiment plant as it's been documented over the last couple of months. Well, the last year or so we've, you know, but we've only done a couple videos on it. Its progress, if you will. But here's the new growth, you know, so it is not completely toast yet. It's doing something, you know. I mean, it needs to be washed again, but I'm not going to wash it, and we're just going to keep letting it go along. But we aren't going to address anything, right? So that's kind of the difference. When you identify problems, I'm sure most of you guys want to address it, and that means, you know, repotting. For most of the issues, I mean, I know that you can't say for everything, you know, repotting will solve it. However, I think for most of the issues that you will face in certainly like general Phalaenopsis orchids, the problem is in the roots, and it needs to be addressed down in the roots, which means you got to look at the roots and repot it. Let me grab the little thing, magic carpet. Well, I can't find the magic carpet, so I'll use the old-fashioned bag. I know, it's fine. I'll just, all right, pull the tag out. So you can see this one. We really love this hybrid. This is Gigantea alba crossed with Gelb Canary, Youngho Gelb Canary. It's a nice plant. So I'm sad. It's always been a very strong grower for us. I'm kind of sad that it's starting to look unhealthy. So yeah, clearly, look, you know, and that is what I expected to see. Just dead, rotten roots, right? That is exactly what I expected. So that's a problem. Now, yeah, the media, I mean, this bark probably is pretty, it looks pretty broken down. It's got some things going on. I'm going to look closer for bugs, but, you know, just wanted you guys to see, right? When there's clearly a link, and if you have an issue with your orchid where it is dehydrated, the best thing you can do is look at the roots and inspect. Now, this can be definitely potted down a lot, so I'll, you know, just grab the media I have. We'll put this into a much smaller pot and trim off all these dead roots. I mean, I'll show you just to kind of, I don't normally trim roots, right? When you are repotting orchids, you typically don't want to trim anything, but these are clearly gross, rotten. I don't want that in the pot at all. So I'm just gonna lop off all that dead stuff. That is really bad, not good. And yeah, I'm so glad that we did this. Now it really needed to be done, and hopefully we can save this orchid, because this one is worth saving. This is one we really like, and it's been a part of our collection for a while. Okay, so I'm going to leave these dead husks on here. Well, that one will pull right off, so that's fine. That can come off. All right. Much cleaner. I'm going to wash this really well. I'm going to inspect it for bugs, and then we'll repot it up into a much smaller pot. But you'll have to see the potted result next week, because I'm not going to show all that on video. Today is more just about diagnosing problems, and I'm sure if I look at, for instance, this guy, if I were to do the same thing with the Leptotes bicolor, yeah, I'm thinking I would see the same thing. More than 50% dead roots, if not more than that. And yeah, that's the thing with orchids. They can like hang on for a long time They may not even show many signs of stress, but when you look under the hood, it's got major problems, and if you don't diagnose them, then for certain the plant won't make it. Yeah, once they kind of go, it's a very long road to recovery. So it's better to be proactive on this kind of stuff while I still have 3 leaves. Hopefully it'll, once we repot this phal, you know, in a couple months, it will start putting on a new leaf. We have lots of good roots here still, so yeah, it's not the end for this guy, right? So once you see these little problems start to rear their ugly head, take care of them. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you back here at Alpilar soon.